I actually inherit many of Jennifer's students, and she has gotten them incredibly excited about interventionist art, and they bring stories and information from her classes. So that's actually been really great for me. Now I want to bring the panel up to the stage and...
Because there's so many of us, I'd like us to be able to all have the chance to talk, and I want you all to be able to have the chance to ask questions of the artists, but also participate, since many of you are also practitioners, in responding to some of the questions that I posed. So I'm going to pose general questions to our panelists, and we'll hear from them first. But we want everyone to have the opportunity to respond to questions, for example, that I'll pose about what is the public, or how does the public operate for you? Because it may actually be quite productive for a conversation to take place between the audience and us up here on stage. So as soon as we get our mic together, I'm not sure what's going on with it, but hopefully it will get fixed soon. So in fact, my first question does have to do with the public. Also, I will be, as the moderator, it's my job to make sure that no one goes on for too long. So if I do signal you, just attend and bring it to a close, including you in the audience. Thanks very much for that. Okay, I don't have to shout. How's that? Can you hear me now? It's not on still. It's on but quiet. How's that? How's that? Can you get the volume up, maybe? All right. Okay. I think it will be hard for all this to shout. How's that? How about here? Swing it. Excellent. Yes. Absolutely. Oh, you did forget to introduce who individuals were. So, yeah. So this is Andy Bickelbaum from the Yes Men. Dee Hibbert-Jones from UC Santa Cruz. And Jennifer Gonzalez. This is Bradley McCallum and Jacqueline Tarry. Laurel Beckman. Laurel Beckman. And Sharon Daniel. Well, it's very exciting to have all of you here, all of your quite impressive work, which, as I was sitting there looking at it, I was thinking, well, now I know what my next book is about, actually. So it was quite inspiring to look at some of this work, some of which I already knew quite well, and some of which was new to me, and it's always a pleasure. So my first question is going to be a question about the public. And we heard a little bit in Sharon's writing about this question of what constitutes the public, how do we define the public? And I don't expect us to arrive at any final conclusions, but what I would like to do is to ask the artists each in turn to ruminate on this question, both how do you define the public? Does the term the public work for you? And how do you think about that in relationship to your specific projects? And maybe if you'd like to address the question of how working on a project changed your notion of what the public might be. I think that could be an interesting way to address the question as well. So why don't we start?
For me and for us, the public is the kind of the key concept as opposed to the private. After the BBC announcement that you just showed, the Dow stock value actually plunged by $4 billion on the stock exchange. Well, not so fast. It went right back up when we announced that it was a hoax, or when the BBC announced it was a hoax. And that kind of made us think, well, we'd already thought about it, of course, but it kind of demonstrated very clearly why we need a public. You know, we had just had Dow, this private company, do the right thing, do something that it will never do, but that it seems imaginable to all of us that it could do. It could just clean up the site, it could compensate the survivors and deal with it. And the result was that it got punished. And if they had never been, if the hoax had never been revealed, who knows? Maybe the selling would have continued all the way to zero. So it kind of made us realize there's a whole giant mechanism called the private that keeps companies from being able even to do the right thing, even if they wanted to. So, you know, the alternative is obviously the public is enacting laws that just determine what companies are allowed and not to do. It's our power. It's our only power. We can't actually make companies be good. We can only declare that, you know, we can't make individual companies be good by any other means. So it's like democracy.
Do you want us just to go in order? Shall we just keep going down?
Sure.
Yes. I think one of the things for us was the fact, because we took the project to Europe, so it was it has been so far in the psychological prosthetics in England, France, Germany, Switzerland, and then we went to Israel and then came back to the US. And one of the things about the public, considering this idea of the relationship between emotions, psychopharmaceutical industry, and the kind of corporate image, is how differently it was received in each country. And so the public, in actual fact, is very different. So, for example, in England, very nice little old ladies would actually return things to me saying, "Thank you so much, but I'm feeling fine right now, so I don't need this." As opposed to in France, where a man insisted that he needed to buy it because it was philosophy. And in Germany, people actually came up and said, we probably will be offending people and we should stop doing this. In Israel, they smoked cigarettes and were like, "Hey, what the hell is this?" And then as you saw in Chicago, when actually the US has been our most interesting public in that way, because people actually are prepared to engage in elongated, serious conversations with you about something which they clearly initially believed to be either a spoof or something as a corporate product. And yet, obviously, at some point, this becomes no longer kind of irrational, something that can be extended, and yet they stay with you and continue their conversation. So the public, for us, is also engaged in terms of each place we went to, and that was quite phenomenal to see that relationship and how, in actual fact, corporate marketing is altered significantly for each public that it's engaging with.
So, you want to go first?
Doesn't matter. I guess. See, I get past the responsibility. I think for us, the public is very literal. Homelessness is an issue that I initially walked into this project thinking is something very, very personal, the idea of home, what home stands for, and the loss of that as being a personal issue. But in this particular project, spanging, which was a term that I was turned on to. Spanging is the act of sitting out in the public and asking for change, was something that was really a prominent activity within this group. And so, when we tried to create the video, we didn't want it to be there be any signifiers to Seattle. We wanted it to be a space that could be anywhere. Homelessness, the children living on the street, spanging, the act of acting for change. So it all takes place very literally on the street.
And I actually think with each of our different projects, the idea of public comes in a very different and specific way. But in this case, we were invited to Seattle through a fairly innovative grant program that gave the initial funding to the arts organization. So we were one of 3 artists who came to Seattle and were interviewed by the homeless youth for making this project. And they, I think, would be in some ways a primary audience. And so after an hour and a half grilled interview, they were really curious, like, why were we sympathetic to kids on the street? Which in many cases we weren't. We were very much like the sort of, I guess, general audience who might think, get a job, get over it, what's going on. And our approach and response was very transparent in that sense. We weren't trying to be sympathetic, although we do feel a kind of responsibility in terms of testimony to honor someone's